Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome to the stream. The titles of my streams don't usually have much to do with the overall topics, and this time I neglected to update the description beforehand, so I guess it is a little bit of a mystery stream, unless you're listening to this later, like probably most people will. I've gotten better about keeping track of timestamps and things, so I hope someone appreciates that someday. All right. So I did start a little bit early, which is something that nobody asked for, but I don't know. I just felt like if you start something at, like, it's 1 p.m. my time, right? So if you plan to do something at 1 p.m., that's kind of your whole day. It's right in the middle. So I feel like might as well just start at noon, get real cozy. I didn't have anything else planned. I played a lot of Path of Exile this week, which was fun, but I think I'm over that now. This is very silly news. Not silly, but I guess to me it's very serious news. Very few people will probably care about this, but I am gonna start Twitch streaming next month after this video game comes out. My favorite video game of all time. I'm so excited. SaGa Frontier Remastered. Basically, this game had 7 characters, right, when it was released back in, what, 1998 or something.
On YouTube, it's you saying about this video game that it
Yeah,
got
I'm so
released back in
excited.
1998. Yeah.
Okay, I just had to click the button on OBS again. For some reason that hiccuped. Now I'm confused though. I wonder if I wonder chronologically what is on there. You know what I mean? Is that just where it left off?
I don't know.
I don't know. Oh, I can just see how long it is, and then from there I'll figure out what's been said. But anyway, I only mentioned that because I'm really excited to just
I can just
have an
see.
excuse to do Twitch. A
Twitch.
good excuse. It looks like there's only 2 minutes of us on here, so I think our entire conversation, which wasn't very long, honestly. I started like.
Not
10
very
minutes ago.
substantive, but
Yeah, but basically, well, I think for me the interesting takeaway is since Who Wants to Be a Millionaire has the same name everywhere, like if your currency is stronger, then you get a better prize, which is funny. Except I guess maybe you are. So maybe I do remember that I guess some of the prizes in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in America they started giving more than $1 million, but I don't know, whatever. It would, be really funny though, is if you were doing like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, right, in a country with a weaker currency, and like one of the trivia questions is like which prize adjusted for inflation or whatever is like the best. The best deal. You have to choose all the other countries that are gonna give more money if they win than the one you're in.
But if there was, say, an Icelandic version of it where they used Icelandic krona for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, then it would equate to something like 7,800 USD, because that's how weak their currency is.
Right.
And it's even worse in some places. I don't even want to speculate as to what the state of Somalia's currency is, for example.
Yeah, right. Actually though, if it was Somalia outside of Mogadishu, they'd be fine.
Yeah. So do you have like an anarcho-capitalist take on their society?
Well, I just have like the basic version of it is just all the violences surrounding Mogadishu, and like if you compare certain outcomes of Somalia recently, right, going quote unquote anarchic to literally any state being set up, to be frank, you know, it's kind of it's a bullshit comparison, and then of course it's all the violence is being perpetrated by statist people anyway. But then the places where they're able to get away from most of the political forces, like international bullshit going on there, those are the places that tend to thrive and do a lot better than than before.
Right.
So, I mean, but people like hear that and they say, "Oh, so you're saying Somalia is a utopia now?" And it's just, I mean, no intelligent person responds that way, but like everyone responds that way, and it's so frustrating. Speaking
Yeah.
of kind of more, I don't know, what I consider to be very conventional ANCAP takes, I was emailed today from Stefan Molyneux's newsletter, and I have not done a very good job at all keeping up with his videos, mostly because, you know, if you've listened to him for as many years as I had, you know, he repeats the most important stuff, you know, in each one, so it kind of gets to be like a religious sermon, right, where you kind of, I don't know, you feel like you get the lore.
Yeah.
But no, but this last interview is actually a really good one. Basically, recapitulates like all of what I think are like the most kind of like powerful and useful, like basic arguments for understanding the ANCAP perspective. So I had that open
Yeah.
here, which I thought I was listening through it. It's how far did I get? I have I got about halfway through, and there wasn't anything particularly new. I thought though worth like responding to.
No,
But this is kind of nice. This
suppose not.
stream manity I haven't heard of.
I mean, after being on the platform for, he was making YouTube videos in 2006, wasn't he? So
Yeah, yeah.
at that point, not to say like a broken record, but the script is usually very well dug in, even with the most intelligent people when they've been around that long. If you get what I'm saying.
Right. No, like, and that's kind of the thing, right? Is like if you're explaining something and it's kind of the same thing, you kind of fall into a groove of what seems to be the most like efficient and an effective way of saying it, right? And I think that, you know, over time it kind of just like narrows to a point.
Yeah, and in some ways, getting booted off platforms, as depressing as it is, creates intellectual opportunities for these kinds of people, as much as it is individually dismaying to them when it happens for obvious reasons. Um, if you have to start again from nothing on an unfamiliar platform, it means that you don't have the issue of trying to pander to established customers or to an established like user base. You can just kind of say whatever you want. You're not trying to please your audience in any way. Not saying that Molyneux was habitually blighted by that problem as much as some people, like, I don't know, the Amazing Atheist.
Yeah, though he is
He's a more,
accused of that often, but
yeah,
I tend to
the
simp for Molyneux probably a little bit more than I should, but
the Amazing Atheist is more of a prototypical example of a trend chaser
yeah, I'd
because
have to that's undeniable, I think.
he at one point described himself as a libertarian, and then, and this is his description of it, he became popular. That is just in his own estimation, he became popular, and that's when his views started to change. He didn't go so far as to say that it was his popularity itself that precipitated his change in his beliefs, because that just sounds so Machiavellian. It was more vague than that, but he just said, you know, I became popular, and then that's when my views started to shift so as to give the plausible deniability of imagining that the two had nothing to do with each other, when of course they had everything to do with each other. He just follows trends.
No, yeah, and the last video you had sent me of his was uh,
Awful.
awful.
Yeah, I told you about the philosophy of analism, where
That
all
that's
philosophy.
that's pretty. We
Yeah.
should actually just read that. I showed it to a couple of friends because I thought it was it's funny, but it does also feel like it could be prophetic.
Okay.
I mean, we already
Shall
have
I?
anality, you know.
Yeah. Should I just repost it in the main chat in main?
Oh, do you have it? I have it. I can copy it.
Oh, okay.
I found it. I found it. Wait, how do you copy things anymore? Yeah, I'll just post it in general.
People say peak boomer, but of course you're not a boomer, you're a millennial. And because I'm Gen Z, I can say lol peak millennial.
And then it's gonna be the Gen Alpha kids like 5 years from now with cracking voices. They'll be saying "Peak Zoomer." Analism is the normative ethical theory according to which all actions are judged as right or wrong in direct proportion to how effectively they facilitate one's ability to sexually penetrate people's anuses, and how effective they are at absolving one from the indignity of ever feeling morally judged. Although it is most commonly associated with figures of T.J. Kirk, its exact origins are difficult to isolate since the term was itself never used by its most vociferous proponents. Instead, the term is applied retroactively by modern historians to a specific family of ethical and political thought originating in the mid-late 20th century and steadily becoming more culturally mainstream in the 21st century until it eventually dominated the state media and the vast majority of academic institutions. Analism is widely regarded to have been at least a conspicuous symptom of the West's cultural decline, if not directly causative of it. It reached its zenith of popularity during the first half of the 21st century, when the societies of the Western Europe-derived world almost collapsed owing to decades-long slow-burn invasions orchestrated by treasonous politicians, euphemistically sometimes called immigration, global managerial corporatism, absurd government debt, Christian Zionism, an unregulated sexual marketplace, aging populations, and near-constant military conflict with Western and Central Asia. Yep, that's analism.
Yep.
Just one big brown herring.
Yeah. The banality of the modern age, but then in light of this, you could say the anality.
Well, but
Oh, like,
anality, I feel like has the connotation of academia, right?
yeah. Well, if you
Like
put
studies
ism,
in anality.
yeah, if you put ism at the end of something, like etymologically, that means basically that it's an ideology. And I think it's fair to describe this as a certain kind of ideology, or at least a set of attitudes that seems to be, well, disturbingly common in the modern age, as exemplified by the figure of T.J. Kirk and the people who like his videos, I suppose.
Yeah, what was the other thing? No, okay, then I was sorry, I was caught up on if you add ity like anality, right? I don't know,
Mhm.
like for me that would have to mean like it's treating as an object characteristics of actions, if that makes sense, right? Like if adding ism to something is kind of like to sort of objectify something that's an ideal, then something with ity would be like objectifying things in motion. But I don't know if that's just because that's my like particular prejudice with these two terms. I guess I could just
Which
look
two
this up.
terms?
Analism versus anality.
Well, yeah, I agree
Because
with you.
analist scholars have already coined, like black anality and things like that famously. So,
Yeah, I was thinking
but
of
is
that
that the only
stream of
reason I
thought.
have that distinction or that association in my mind? I mean, like they could have just as easily called it analism then. And then
Yeah,
this wouldn't even be like hypothetical if they had just called anality analism. Like that's it's
yeah.
so close.
It actually didn't occur to me to make that connection to those weird academic articles before. Like, I thought of this as just a thing in its own right. But yeah, that's it is interesting. I mean, the in context, this is just TJ's kind of like dumb, grug-brained, dick cheese encrusted hedonism is probably the best way to describe it. Where it's just he was making a video about how his views on feminism have evolved and so on, and he began by giving this sermon, which is so typical of people who want to sound intelligent, where they'll say, oh, well, there's an amazing diversity of views underneath the umbrella term of, in this case, feminism. There's a million different feminisms, and they all have different ethical commitments. And to the extent that his ethical commitments, which is just basically facilitating his the ease with which he's able to have anal sex with people, is aligned with the ethical commitments of a feminist theory, then he's okay with it ethically. Of course, the obvious problem with this, other than just the shallowness of it, which is sort of what we've been poo-pooing for the last few minutes, just the kind of like shallow-minded stupidity of it, is like, it's just it's understood when people use a term, an ism, they're obviously talking about the version of that thing, that ideology, that creed that has actual effects in the world. So the version of feminism that people see all the effects of, um, which is most powerful, is the one that's most worthy of complaining about. So people complain about that. They don't complain about these obscure figures like Camille Paglia or Wendy McElroy or whoever, who are extreme outlier cases who are shunned by the rest of the movement, because it's just a waste of time, and it's just sort of a way for people to intellectually jerk each other off. But like, oh yeah, there's this amazing variety, and you just don't understand the subtleties of the and they're full of shit. So
Wait, I think I might have lost you at a point. You were saying that people don't want to, or there's more of an incentive to go after like the more powerful ones, or not the more powerful
yes,
ones.
yes, the more powerful ones.
The ones you don't want to go after, or you do because you get more of a
Do
reaction that way.
yeah,
Right. Okay, so
the
but you're
ones that
talking about
actually
feminists,
have.
right? But so TJ
Yeah, I'm
Kirk,
talking
wouldn't he
about.
go after the
Yeah.
sex positive ones then? Because that would be the main, right? Like it's the sex positive, trans inclusive feminists that seem to have the most like institutional power,
Yeah.
followed
I'm
closely
saying
by
that.
identical feminists that are the same but turfy, but
Yeah, well,
sex positive turfs.
the point is just that he's criticizing people who criticize feminism because most people want to criticize the feminism that has lots of effects in the world, right? As opposed to the more, I don't know, subtle ones or whatever that he likes, I suppose.
Well, I don't even
And just
remember like the last video you sent that I just seen, because that's the first video of his I'd seen in probably at least 3 or 4 years. Um, I don't remember him even responding to feminists. I just remember him talking about how he's cool with things because more anal for him. I don't even remember the the point. Did he? I don't
yeah.
even think he quoted or named like a particular person he's responding to.
No, he was just talking about it generically, um, as an ideology.
Yeah. So what kind of feminist does he imagine he's criticizing?
Um, what he would call sex negative feminism, I
Oh, I
think.
see.
Yes.
Mm,
And turfs,
and those turfs. Yep.
because he likes transsexuals. Um,
Right. So
yeah.
yeah, he wouldn't be against turfs for any reason, being like, oh, like trans people have human dignity and blah blah blah. Blah. It'd be more like I want more boy pussy, so therefore I don't like turfs.
Yeah. Oh, somebody,
And that's
Paulo said,
analism. Yeah, Paulo wants to defend TJ Kirk, and I mean it's fair, right? He'd been making videos for so long, and
mhm.
I'm sure a lot of people like start watching that and then like move on to different
Yeah,
stuff.
well, I'm not saying that he's never said correct things. I'm just saying that he is quite shallow and kind of a trend follower.
I wonder if since I would argue, right, that he is kind of in tune, right, with the overall moral like zeitgeist of society, which is I guess proto-analism.
The zeit,
Small head
yeah,
moralism,
yeah,
like
the
small head like
zeitscheit, the
zeitscheit.
zeitscheit.
That's good. Or the Scheitgeist. That sounds like a ghostly shit.
Yeah.
um Wait, okay, since he's kind of like naturally inclined that way, right? When he says points, even if it's something that's like simpler, right? When people agree with it, they're like, "Oh, that's cool" or whatever. And like there's no like moving off onto whatever more specific or nuanced thing or whatever, right? So I think it positions them to be like a popular gateway drug or stepping stone.
Mhm.
And I think like you kind of, I guess
Yes.
you need to have people that are tuned into that, which is kind of funny. Like, can you imagine, like society degenerates, like the culture, even like to a far more extreme and insane degree, and then that's the point where you have to find people who can like say the most basic mundane truths as the first building blocks, but they have to be in tune with like that culture.
Yeah.
Like
Sorry,
imagine, I guess what I'm saying
could
is
you repeat
imagine
that?
the TJ Kirks of like 200 years from now, assuming that everything gets worse.
Yeah. I mean, what is it?
I don't even
The
know where to
meme about,
begin.
yeah, the meme about how conservatives just conserve the gains of the left from 10 years ago, or etc. And we can assume that that will prevail 200 years from now. Like, in 100 years from now, it's going to be conservative to think that um, merely that uh, that what 7-year-olds should not be allowed access to transgender hormone replacement as opposed to 5-year-olds.
No, well, you know what? I think the recent happening, which really like highlights this issue with conservatism, is that debate with Blair White, that Lauren chick, that Karen chick, and John Doyle, that four-way debate. Oh, what was the name of that channel? I wish I could find it. But I listened to that thing, and I guess
Slightly offensive.
slightly
That's the name
offensive.
of the
I
channel.
just want to bring it up just so like at least the thumbnail or whatever is on there, and I don't know if let's see, slightly offensive. It's Blair White. Right, the one that Vosh was criticizing because he felt that Blair White took a lot of abuse from this Lauren woman, and that um, watched it, and I did not really think Blair White came off in a bad way at all. I thought she seemed pretty calm. And Kapow, yes, TJ Kirk's amazing atheist. But yeah, this Lauren chick is like the perfect face of this like new conservative movement. Like this woman is she's like a former heroin addict, right? And now she's like doing this whole like reformed Christian tradwife thing, right? And apparently she was like on Twitter like trying to get this woman's husband deported because I guess he's not a citizen, but he's there legally, right? But since he's not a citizen, and then she thinks, oh, you're married for a green card, she thinks she can like, so like that's just drama they're having on Twitter, right? And she's going after Blair White, saying like, just go away, you shouldn't be part of the conservative movement. And it's very funny because I guess in this way Blair White does kind of serve the TJ Kirk role in that she's more or less in tune with the dominant culture. A little bit what's the word I'm looking for? What's dissident, a tiny bit dissident, right, in being LGBT conservative, if, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah.
But like Blair's done a hell of a lot more to bring people like into more, I guess, what you'd call conservative ideas. But I guess that's the real problem is they have like totally different ideas of it, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just imagine like this newcomer like moralizing on everyone, and she's a former drug addict, right? It was like coming down on Blair and this Caitlyn chick or whatever. John Doyle, I guess, came off pretty reasonable. He didn't really get a lot of a chance to speak, I don't think. I don't know. Did you end up watching this whole thing, or were you just kind of looking at that Vouch response?
Honestly speaking, I did not watch it at all. I just saw the title.
Yeah, Christian conservatives battle pro LGBT Republicans, and it's so stupid that this has to be like the debate right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've remembered. Obviously we shan't speak of it, but there was that what's it? That episode of the Stark Truth that was edited to basically screen out a certain type of wrong thing that I said a few years ago, for obvious reasons. But I was like, thinking about this again, so yeah, just with respect to like sexual mores and like the traditionalism about them. And it's like the reason, one of the reasons that you have traditions around these things is because having to explicate why they're actually there is embarrassing. And there's sort of just this feeling of low browness, or like sort of, you know, your mind in the gutter, etc., this kind of thing, if you even think about these kinds of topics seriously and try to justify them from a completely consequentialist lens even. And that's part of why we have certain moral norms in the first place, is just so that people don't have to openly discuss these things. And so there was that case of like a woman in the UK, some 18-year-old who, I don't know, had sex with 7 men in a locker room or something like this. And there was the sort of the usual discussion about this on Twitter. There was this guy, this Labour Party supporter, I think. He was pontificating about how if I had a daughter, I wouldn't be creepily obsessed with her sex life, right? So that's like the narrative, is that if you're a father and you were concerned about this, that would be, quote, creepy or, quote, obsessive, right? And at the same time, there's hysteria about age of consent. So let's say the age of, it's actually 16 in Britain, but let's say it was 18, as it is in most states of America. Um, it's conspicuous just the degree to which the modern world expects you not only to believe in lies, but to maintain mutually incompatible preferences, that are mutually incompatible to, you know, the point of absurdity or insanity. So it's like you're supposed to think, um, I don't care about my 18-year-old daughter's sex life. It's none of my business. I wouldn't want to be perceived as creepy or as a quote-unquote pedophile for having thoughts about these things. But at the same time, right, you can probably guess what I'm leading up to. At the same time, you're supposed to think, oh, well, thank God she at least waited until she was 18 to be a whore. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it exposes like that absurdity, right? Which I still think that the video ᴅᴀᴇᴍ made about age of consent laws and their absurdity, like I thought it was a really good take overall. He had the part of it where he talked about some experiences that he had, and because of that, everybody freaks out over that video, and then like everybody misses the entire point. I should steal that video and I should clip it in a way to make it PC enough for anti-SJWs to to understand the point.
But yeah, so it's like,
It's literally that though. It is the one topic where you have to be extremely PC around everyone, especially like non-PC people. Maybe not especially, I guess,
yeah,
comparably.
and I don't know if you feel this as much as I do. Maybe I'm just more sensitive to it, or more sensitive in general. But there is also just this sense that you're creepy by even talking about it. And there's a sense of like, you know, why are you even talking about this, that you have to be careful around.
No, yeah, yeah.
But it's like,
There's no other way to put it, I don't think.
so there was a couple more things I wanted to, so it's like teenagers are sexual beings. This is extremely obvious. That's why you develop a sex drive during your teenage years, is, well, to reproduce, ultimately, biologically speaking. And also, teenagers are encouraged from an extremely young age, to basically partake of all these, you know, this sort of sex positive messaging, and about sexually libertine lifestyles and stuff. They are introduced to this kind of stuff from an extremely young age and absorb it and process it to the point where, you know, we have, um, uh, you know, on-demand abortion for 12-year-olds in certain countries and this kind of shit. But people are just completely in denial about this, and they want to pretend that teenage girls specifically, and it is different for boys, because you'll see this academic literature about different societies' sexual mores, especially in reference to, say, homosexuality. They'll actually talk about homosexual teenage boys as if they have sexual agency in a way that they never ever will with teenage girls, right? But that's beside the point. And despite all this, you're supposed to just adhere to, or just become completely morally hysterical about the whole age of consent thing. And it's like, I think our ancestors actually had a solution to this, which made sense, which is that, so you have to remember that our ancestors in, my mind immediately goes to Victorian Britain, where 7-year-old children could be held criminally responsible for pickpocketing to the point of execution. Yes, they would execute children and hold them responsible to that degree. And they
Yeah, I
also
remember you
grew up.
mentioning that. Wasn't I
Yeah,
think the youngest was like a 12-year-old, right? I don't know if they executed like babies.
I don't know, but they could be executed from quite young, like as well, I think around the age of 12, something like that. And even 7-year-olds were prosecuted, sometimes executed. Like there were actual cases of that happening.
See,
But
because to
that's
me
also
that's
that's
crazy. To me, like that's like a world of difference, like executing a
yeah.
7-year-old versus a 12-year-old.
But there's
Which
like
is that
yeah,
weird? I think that makes sense. Most people would say, for
yeah.
example, like if like a baby got executed,
Mhm.
that's worse than a 7-year-old, right?
Yeah. But
Or almost though, if you ask someone, they wouldn't honestly say that. They'd say, no, it's worse because they're below 18.
yeah.
Right?
Well, so I was getting to a point about that.
Yeah.
The children during these eras, they had a lot of responsibilities. In some cases, they worked in, they went up chimneys and they worked in factories and textile mills and so on from an extremely young age. So I think if you had asked them a question like, is it morally appropriate for, say, a 13-year-old to have sex? Um, if you'd ask them, is that morally appropriate? They would say no. But if you ask them to give their reasoning for it, like just given all of the responsibilities these people had from an extremely young age, like I was just talking about, I don't think their answer would consist in the kind of thing people would say these days, which would be something to the effect of, oh, it's just too complex. The act of sex is just too morally ambiguous or so on for a 14-year-old or a 13-year-old to quote unquote understand, right? I don't think that's an answer that really would have occurred to them. But what they would have said, and see, this is a great argument for why traditionalism is probably just the best bet in a lot of cases, um, in line with how we evolved, our evolved psychology. They would say, well, the purpose of sex is to do with um, very grown up responsibilities. It's about family and marriage and this kind of stuff, and all the sorts of responsibilities attendant to parenting and that kind of thing. And that it's those things that they could not help but attach to the act of sex. That would be their reasoning. But we don't, and that makes sense, and it's a good theory, a good justification. But we don't have that anymore because we've detached sex from any of those things because we have a completely unregulated sexual marketplace, and that's why people say they use the quote unquote these kinds of weird moral ambiguity objections and so on that I was alluding to before that don't make much logical sense, and I think that's what Justicar was complaining about. So yeah, like I know I went on for a bit, but do you contest any of that? Does it make
Well,
sense?
I don't recall him making that exact argument because I think his was more just that it's like just the structure of it legally is so impractical because of how like how just like the idea that like that very specific and complex answer that the government came to is the right one, right, is just like absolutely ridiculous, and that it changes so much based upon like simple matters of like geography, you know. But I think what you're saying makes sense. So just to recap it, like in the past, like people had responsibilities that came with their sexual choices, and since these were time periods where people tended to take on a lot of adult responsibilities at very young ages, it didn't seem that far-fetched or that unusual for people at much younger ages to have sexual agency. Now these
Yes.
days we still have the same like hard line standard, or we have some kind of standard, right, about children and sexuality, right? But instead of arguing that it's based on any kind of responsibility, we can't make that argument anymore, because when adults have sexual choices, we don't hold them responsible either. So now they have to like make shit up that like might not be anything you can actually pin down,
Yeah.
and then pretend that like that's always been the reasoning. Oh,
Yeah.
another thing too is when you were mentioning, that there was a double standard regarding, teenage boys versus teenage girls being given attributed agency for their actions. I mean, you don't have to go like really back in time or across different cultures, and even isolating to gays, right? Because you can just look at, all the stories about teachers hooking up with students, or hooking up's the wrong term, right? Molesting,
Hmm.
abusing, raping, whatever, depending
Yeah.
on the circumstances, right? Is that you always see that the boys are seen as, getting lucky.
Was a story recently in the news here, in the region of England that I live in, about a woman who, middle-aged woman in either her 40s or 50s. Um, she was cheating on her husband. Her husband had some sort of a violent rage about it, and they got into some sort of physical altercation because she was in, and this is their word, right? This is what they said. They said that she was in a quote relationship with a 15-year-old boy over whom she exercised a certain amount of power because she worked at the juvenile detention facility that he was staying at. So it's the same story here as in America, basically.
Wait, so okay, so her husband. Oh, because she was cheating with the. I see. Okay. For a second I
Right.
thought
So
that.
the story, the hilarious thing, well, or not hilarious, depending on how you look at it, is that the story was about her husband's violent
Yeah,
rage
violent rage
to do.
towards her. Well, and that's funny because you can contrast that with, the stories everybody celebrates about, like a dad finds their son being molested, and then, beats up or kills the molester, right? And like
Yeah.
this could almost be that modeled that same way, but
Well, and the way that that's cashed out, what I was sort of trying to get at before is that people have these instincts, um, a natural instinct to want to basically protect the virginity of their teenage daughters because of very sort of deep ingrained moral impulses within them. But it's very difficult to square that with modern or postmodern morality. So you could have this guy, who's fiercely protective of his 17-year-old girl in this way. Maybe he wouldn't, 17-year-old daughter, maybe he wouldn't couch it in exactly this language, but he would sort of paint this picture of this, just innocent, angelic, beautiful, gentle flower, still in the blossom of her youth, and don't you dare go anywhere near her, referring to, I don't know, men that are interested in her or that she's interested in. But then the moment she turns 18, you have this sort of need to refit or just abolish those kinds of natural impulses that fathers have. And um and then all of a sudden it's like, how dare you, uh, how dare you have any kind of moral objection to your daughter being a whore? Um,
yeah, and that
it was,
that is
yeah,
such a bullshit thing too, right? Because basically the way everything is set up, the way like our society, because that might be what it would take in order for people to have any kind of an empathy for that. But it is a good point, right? Like in any number of things, we just kind of use like this makes me feel happy, this makes me feel uncomfortable, right? And like those reactions are very often seen as reasons in and of themselves. And especially a lot of the people who would say to men who are like bothered by OnlyFans, that they should just suck it up, that it's based on their toxic masculinity or whatever. You don't own these women, you need to give it up. They project whatever like horrific motive or psychology, onto men and all of them, right? It's got to be all of them this way. It's whatever. Um,
Hmm.
they'll do that, but then they'll be the same ones who are arguing, for like how important trigger warnings are, because how could you know if someone's going to be upset by a particular word or a thing or whatever, right? And we should do this thing to accommodate for that, like all of that's very real. And just yeah, I mean, you could make endless examples of that. I did also want to mention, and it's a little bit of an aside, but like based on like the um what men are feeling through this, right, is based on things that are logical. Probably the strongest argument just being knowing paternity, right? To me, it's
Yes.
insane that there's not a common cultural practice among women, particularly Western women, to say like, hey, we're doing a prenup because it's for your protection, and I understand that if you were to ask me, right, that it would feel bad or whatever. So the woman should be the one to offer it, and that should be a standard thing. Like I think any good woman who's considering getting married, she should offer the prenup, and she should offer DNA testing for all of the children that are born. She should just do it, even if there's absolutely like no doubt that everything's fine and above board. Like and it'll probably seem silly, right, to most couples, but I think that that's something that women should popularize and should be doing, just as like a sign of, I don't know, like a sign that she cares about the person she's marrying, and that she wants him to have that peace of mind, like universally, independent of whether or not the marriage works out. You know what I mean? Like to me, it's a fucking mind fuck that this isn't a thing that women just do. I mean,
Yeah, well, because as I was saying, it's like if it's the man that brings it up, then that's going to sow distrust or suspicion, right? And she's going to think,
yeah,
oh my God, I can't believe you're asking this of me. So,
yeah, and I
sort
think
of a thing.
anyone would think that way, right? I think that's
Yeah.
perfectly, yeah. Like I'm not gonna fault them for but yeah, but that's, and maybe it is just like a thing where it's like, well, I know I'm not cheating, so why would I do this? But that's
Yeah.
that's solipsistic. But I guess it
Yeah.
just
It's
speaks to
also
the
just
lack
like,
of awareness of any kind of male perspective. Yeah, that like women don't have like false maternity. Like false maternity requires very complex maneuvers in order to actually happen. I'm not sure how many cases of it have ever actually happened, right? There was one in the dinosaurs sitcom. There was a false maternity episode, which is pretty funny. But anyway, like it,
is
like
this, is
most
the
people just don't even
stream,
realize that.
is the stream delayed on YouTube or is it okay? Like, are we still going? Is,
Oh, I should probably check the um
it doesn't look as though anybody's been complaining about it, but
right. Oh, it looks like it might be buffering. Or is it? No, I think it's still good.
uh, do you know Ron Plan Dance? I feel like
Yeah,
we've,
that's
yeah,
Kapow in the Discord.
yeah, but I mean, like, does he make YouTube videos? I feel
Yeah,
like,
he makes dance videos.
oh, yeah, like they just generally, apart from anything else, I think they just generally don't care, and it doesn't occur to them to think much about it. That is women. So,
In the Discord, he asked, since we're still sort of on the topic, whether teenagers are psychologically and emotionally well adjusted to participate in sex. I
well, I've
think the
just
answer is just that age
before you
isn't
get into that,
a
it's
good.
like,
There's not. I don't think there's just like one good variable. And that's the issue, is that
well,
it's always put
the
forth as, okay, age is the one good variable. What's the number? And it's like there's all kinds of
yeah.
answers that we wouldn't accept for someone to
Well,
just
I've
say it has
told
to be a
you.
number.
Well, it's interesting that like, uh, as I mentioned earlier, if you're a traditionalist, then there's an easy answer, right? Because then you just say, well, sex is for marriage, end of story, and teenagers aren't really equipped to deal with those kinds of uncertainties, but or responsibilities, and then that's basically the end of that. I think that's the answer that our ancestors would have given.
Right. Well, and you can give the responsibility-based answer even without traditionalism. That's
Yes.
probably my yeah. That's because so to me, when we have these arguments about the future of conservatism and what it could mean politically and culturally, like okay, you have Christian conservatism, right? And yet the Ten Commandments and these are supposed to be kind of pillars of the religion, that and like just being forgiving and beneficent and everything like that, right? So you got do not murder and do not steal, and obviously the overwhelming majority of Christians aren't anarchists. They're not opposed to the state, right? So rather than going after the obvious like moral abomination of like massive widespread theft that characterizes all of your society, even the entire monetary system is a fiat monetary system which is corrupted from the roots all the way up into your society, such that we can say literally 100% of like our American economy, and therefore like the global economy, is just tainted with theft and corruption and evil, right? But that's not important. That's fuck ever, right? Trump can spend 1.5 times what Obama spent or whatever, right? And I guess he cut some taxes, so that's fiscal conservatism now, which is insane. That's that's a boomer fiscal conservatism. Um,
Oh,
and what are they
just
talking? What they're talking about is gay sex and trannies. I'd be so much more convinced by a lot of this very like moralist Christian conservatism if like they just do a little bit more fighting Satan and a little bit less, like doing like what a lot of the Christians in the comment section of this video are saying about this Lauren chick is like she's a terrible representative for Christianity because of the way she goes about it. She's clearly just using it to attack people in like a really really like cynical, like I guess debate style, like gladiator debate style of trying to revive like W. Bush era neoconservatism. So I don't know.
yeah,
I just think the entertainment values first of all there, but yeah, I don't know. I like to point out the
yeah. It
hypocrisy of it.
seems like it's pretty well dead, but that is Bush era conservatism. But
Well, and that's the
uh,
thing, right? Like what I don't understand what the plan is besides like Nick Fuentes basically out and said we're going to adopt communism, and I guess it's going to be racist communism, and that's going to be more popular, and that's how we win. And like that, and that's basically the strategy. That's the America First strategy. And then
yeah,
I guess the other one, the Conservative Inc. one, is we're gonna be like just myopically anti-racist and nothing else.
yeah, and pro slightly lower taxes than
Nominally,
we
right?
have currently. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also just wanted to I know we've kind of moved on from this topic, but just wanted to, in answer to Kapow's question, there's an asymmetry also which I thought you might find interesting. It's nothing we haven't talked about before, but it's like so you would think that question of whether adults with mental retardation, so that is people over the age of 18 who have IQs of 70 or less, you'd think that the question of whether or not those people should be allowed to have sex would be a more morally contentious thing. Like you'd think it would be something that people talk about a lot, and yet nobody talks about it, as far as I can see. So
Right.
just worth mentioning.
No, absolutely. Well, I think that rounds out everything we needed to say about this the ongoing drama of the conservative divide there.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
oh, there was something. Sorry, I brought this up. Like right when you had hopped on, so a little bit of a bit ago. But this story is really interesting. at least to me. I guess I can't exactly say why, but in America we have that Marjorie Taylor Greene woman, right?
Um,
She's almost like a right wing AOC, right? She's like a boomer trad wife in politics who just like does all these outrageous stunts, like like American politics has just degenerated so horribly. Like now, there was the whole thing where she put up like an American flag or something, or like an America First or a MAGA flag or something, like in front of her door in the Congress, and then like the congresswoman across from her, who's a Democrat, put up like a trans flag, right? And like
yeah.
you know, this is where we're at. But anyway, the gist of this one is about a month ago, the Democrats voted to strip this woman of like the special seats she was on, based on comments she made about conspiracies and violence, right? And it's all stupid. It's like shit she liked on social media, or her using language that's like we need to like fight back, and stuff like that. Stuff that's like clearly not incitement, because everybody forgets that the bar for incitement is like ridiculous. It's not just someone said something spicy. It's not someone said I hope you get hit by a bus. That's not incitement. But here's the part that really so anyway, when that was happening, I was pointing out like this is ridiculous. Like they're only doing this because they don't like what she's saying. And they're just like using this as an excuse, like pretending like they're just crybullying her out of her chairs. And all these people were arguing with me saying, no, like you're wrong, because all they're doing is censoring her from these seats. It's not like they're trying to get her out of Congress because blah 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 blah. And then just what, couple days ago, bam, now we have a Democrat introducing a resolution to just totally get her expelled. And I guess how it works is if you get 2/3 majority, you can just straight up expel. um, is she a senator or a representative? I think she's just a representative. I don't think she's a senator. Yeah, it's in the House. Oh, that could be either. Oof, brain fart. Well, whichever. But that's kind of wild to me. Like if you get that kind of crazy 2/3 majority, you can just start like picking off the entire other party, couldn't you? um, but I think it's fucking ridiculous that part of their reasoning is her past apparent endorsements of political violence, as well as her suggestions that school shootings and the 9/11 terrorist attacks were staged. Like the last two things, that should never be a reason for expelling someone, because then if you ever have a fake school shooting or a staged 9/11, you've already set up like a state that's first of all evil enough to do that, and now there's a precedent for silencing them and expelling anybody who's speaking out against it. So I had to get that out there. She's of course cucked on everything, so it's not like she even is out there like saying anything spicy. It's just she liked some Facebook posts, and now she has to. She apologized, I think. So she's
I
she's
mean,
she's doomed.
the uh,
Not that this is
the
gonna get
issue
passed, but
with political violence is like, uh, if somebody really believed that the only way to exercise their ideology across the population was through violence, would you really say, oh, well, okay, I guess I'm just going to give up on it now? Or especially in the case of like retaliatory violence, like if the left are prepared to use violence to promote their ideology and the right isn't prepared to use violence towards the same ends to protect the right's ideology and advance its interests, then it's pretty obvious where that's going to lead. It's just a recipe for failure and being consigned to the dustbin of history. So, like this sort of pacifist injunction against in all violence or just violence in principle just seems pretty dead-ended, or it's just going to be a recipe for getting fucked. So
yeah, right. Like you have a violent extremist with nothing to lose that concocts some crazy suicidal plan, right, to go out with a bang, and then they imagine what, like soft sanctioning of of things they say, right? Like, oh well, but like, how come they did this? We banned them on Twitter. Like, I can't believe we banned them on Twitter for saying that violence was the only solution, and then they went and did the violent thing anyway. Because yeah, I don't
Yeah.
even buy that it has a chilling effect. I would argue, in fact, it does the opposite. And I might even suggest that there are people who understand that and that that's intentional. I'm not gonna make any
Yeah.
particular accusation, but I don't think that that's I think it's plausible. You know what I mean? Like, but that's conspiratorial, right? That's not allowed anymore. That's
Yeah. So I did have some more philosophical stuff that I wanted to sort of explicate, but first I'll go and get a drink. So
Oh, okay. So
I'll be back.
before you get into that, I did want to make sure I talked about the massage parlor shootings. So I'll start to talk about it. I don't know if he's AFK yet or not.
Okay, I'll just go and get a drink.
Yeah, because I think you know the gist of it. So, but and I'm pretty sure I'll chat. What there's probably like a 10% chance that a single person didn't hear about that. The white guy freaked out and murdered 8 people. Now, when I first heard the story, I kept hearing 6 people, right? Because it was the 6 Asian women. Did you guys know? Ooh, we can do a chat vote. Did you know that there were 8 victims, not 6? You should put a 1 in the chat if you knew that there were 8 victims, and a 2 in the chat if you were not aware, if you thought it was only the 6 originally. So I'm gonna put my vote in there. I'm voting too. I want to train everyone to do the voting thing because I think that's fun and interactive. Ooh, maybe I should be a little more serious, but of course, they're trying to make it this big racial thing, right? And everybody, I thought it was ridiculous when they tried to do this big stop Asian hate thing. Was it just a couple of weeks ago? It wasn't that long ago. It was definitely earlier this year. There was a bunch of black on Asian crime, and they tried to depict it as white supremacy. But now that we have one white person who has done a thing, now voila, they finally have real white supremacy, apparently. Ramsey Paul had pointed out you could compare this or contrast it with the Virginia Tech shooting, right, where you had, I guess, predominantly white or at least non-Asian victims with an Asian shooter, and of course, nobody made these kinds of ridiculous claims there. People, of course, would argue, right, that, well, if the majority population is white, then that explains why, if we have a white victim, right, then obviously it's probably not racially motivated because statistically you were just going to hit a white person, right? But of course, that would also logically apply to white perpetrators, unless you had a good reason to believe otherwise, right? You'd say, oh, well, I guess a majority of perpetrators are just going to be white because that's the demographics. But of course, the majority of the perpetrators are not white; they're still black, and the one guy here doesn't really change those numbers very much at all. The other thing, though, this is something I mentioned. Oh no, I hadn't mentioned it on Jay Willie's stream, but the guy argued that he targeted these Asian women at the massage parlor because he was a sex addict and they were encouraging his sex addiction, right? Well, that's basically just the anti-capitalist argument. That's the argument that, these massage women are clearly evil, exploitative capitalists, and they're preying upon this man, right? I mean, obviously he's voluntarily engaging in a service, but he's influenced. He's influenced by money. He's influenced by society and the culture and his upbringing, right? He's influenced by everything. He's just thrown into this, and these greedy Asian capitalists were exploiting him. And frankly, all he did was he ate the rich. He ate the rich. He said fuck landlords, and then he shot them up, right? To me, that's the exact same that translates perfectly. I don't so I wonder how any leftist can get away with trying to argue that this is a white supremacist kind of a crime when clearly it does seem to be more of an anti-capitalist crime. Is what I would argue. He's arguing that he's being exploited by the people he's doing business with. So, and of course, I shouldn't make too much light of it, but that was my thoughts on that little thing happening, which I'm sure much of it you guys have heard before because it's so obvious, you know. Ooh, the chat is really dead. That makes me nervous. We are still live, right? Let me just double check. Yeah, it's still connected. We're good. We're healthy. The other thought I had about this one too is it really does seem like nothing counts unless it's also racist. Like we only care about murders that are potentially part of an anti-racist narrative. And that's why I kept hearing about the story, right? Just kind of here and there. And yeah, I was unaware of the two white victims because they're not useful. They're just not useful to the narrative. But of course, I think that there will be more violence that's associated, or at least somewhat linked to these kinds of sexual frustrations. Because as we all know, the inceldom rate is going to continue to rise. So you know, I mean, obviously doing things that would help support incel communities, and I guess you know, help do something to curb that. There's precious few solutions that seem realistic. But anything that would curb that ongoing trend would probably, you know, you'd see reduce in that kind of violence. The other one, this was an older story, that the Sarah Everard issue. I found this, what is this? Is this Salon? Bazaar. They have the same font. But this article written by Jen Selby on the 15th, so just about a week ago. Um, it's about a vigil, right? That was for Sarah Everard, who was a woman. Apparently, she was, like, I guess, murdered by police. Is seems to be the main narrative. I don't think I don't think there's any reason to contest that. Haven't heard about the story, so too. Really, you didn't hear about the massage parlor guy shooting everyone? I guess it's only a couple days old, and well, I guess these days there's enough shooting stories that I guess it's kind of easy to miss some of them. But yeah, that was some big news from, I guess, this weekend or at the end of last week. But yeah, the Sarah Everard thing. The weird thing is this was the event where we had that suspicious these suspicious photos of the protester, that redheaded she was like a redheaded actress slash activist, I guess, getting arrested, I believe, at this vigil. And everybody on social media, at least as far as I've seen, um, well, they've been pointing out that the photos are just they look a little bit too perfect. They got like really nice angles. It does just seem posed and kind of fake. So there is some tinfoil surrounding that. This article doesn't really go into any of that, but instead, it's a feminist take on how male violence ruined a vigil. And you know, in the ongoing tradition of exposing emotional intelligence, I think this is worth taking a peek at. So it's called Male Violence and Ego Managed to Ruin the Sarah Everard Vigil, and the irony is not lost on us. The horrifying treatment of Sarah Everard mourners is a reminder that women are not safe from male violence, and even from those who claim to protect us. Oh god, I forgot the way she wrote this first paragraph. I fucking hate it. Okay. Shards of light spread ochre fingers through the middle of the Chatham Common bandstand, reaching out over a fractured crowd. Hundreds of women had gathered, their broken hearts heavy, chests weighed down, but the familiarity of it all. Or sorry, by the familiar. She wrote, but it's supposed to be by. You're fucking tight. So like, this pisses me off, right? Right, this like gushing prose as your introduction, right? Which is like a horrible way to start a story. Like I don't. I don't care about the way the light spread on the thing. I don't need an image, right? But anyway, you're gonna write this gushing bullshit and have this kind of a typo on here. Anyway, let's go back. Hundreds of women had gathered, their broken hearts heavy, chests weighed down by the familiarity of it all, to pay their respects to Sarah Everard. She was just walking home, one of the signs threaded in amongst flowers and candles read at the base of the stand. Dear Sarah, we are sorry. Another inscribes, you did nothing wrong. So, like, I gotta stop and just note, these signs highlighted, right? She was just walking home. You did nothing wrong. I think this bullshit needs to get called out. Obviously, the women holding up signs like this, they're not conscious of what they're doing, but fuck them, because what they're trying to do is make it like this is all women, right? Which is just, it's a callous, cynical way of capitalizing on other people's deaths, right? To make it about a very generic, stereotypical feminist narrative of she was just walking home one night and then a man murdered her and everybody blamed her for it. We'll continue. Sarah, 33, disappeared on her way home from a friend's house on the 3rd of March. As has been widely reported, she traveled along a brightly lit main road. She made a 15-minute phone call to her boyfriend, Josh Loth, and arranged to meet him. It was Josh that sounded the alarm the next morning when she didn't arrive home. Her remains were found a week later, thrown into a builder's bag and discarded in woodlands in Kent. Dental records had to be used to identify her, and a 48-year-old Metropolitan Police officer, a man in a position of power and trust, has been charged with her alleged murder. Just a few days before she went missing, another woman had reported the same man for indecently exposing himself. A police watchdog is now looking into whether 2 officers responded appropriately to the report of flashing at a fast food restaurant in South London. It is understood that following the report, he was allowed to work a shift at the U.S. Embassy in Battersea. So that's kind of the background, right? Terrible journalism. I know, right? The details are shocking, but perhaps most terrible of all is the fact that in our collective grief and anger, we shared one thing in common. None of this was surprising. Male violence is ever present. We have been born into it. Keeping ourselves safe from it is stitched into our DNA. A hypervigilant mutation passed from one weary generation to the next. Oh, so now women are a bunch of race realists, right? This is it's pretty spicy. Pretty spicy, lady. Are you a white woman writing this kind of things? You should be careful, right? We're so used to it. So used to men getting away with it that it feels inevitable. So let's just pause. How did she suppose men feel about male violence, right? Because the overwhelming majority of male violence is directed at men. So if exposure to male violence stitches hypervigilance into your DNA, wouldn't like men be like way more anxious and like just caterwauling shit shows than women are, right? By like an insanely wide margin. I had an epiphany and it amuses me.
I was actually watching the video you made about Faraday specs. I watched that video just today, and I actually realized that people like him complaining about shootings are just being hypocrites.
Sorry, what video?
The video you made about Faraday speaks.
Oh, Faraday Speaks, yeah. Was that the first one, right?
Yeah, the first one. That way, like that way you made it like really funny, so I like to watch it.
Yeah, in hindsight, he's actually he's pleasant enough in how he deals with people on social media that I do feel a little bit bad about making fun of his nose so much.
But like he was making fun of his nose himself in that video, so it's really mattered.
Yeah, but mine was like mean spirited. So
oh, I didn't actually know.
You know what I mean, right? Like, but I.
But like I think when I was here, I basically said like, well, that just seems like a very factual assessment of what he looks like.
Yeah, well, and just because he seems a little sensitive, and I don't wanna. I mean, what if he
but if
winds up down another? What if he goes down another pipeline, right? Because of that,
But he's always been on pipelines. Like
he's always in pipelines.
Like,
he's like Super Mario.
Like he can't think. Like he's like he basically said in this video that this people, all these people, they think this, therefore I believe this. And then other people said that, so now I believe that. And then people said this, now I believe that too. I'm like, okay, so you didn't read anything or thought of anything.
No, yeah, and I
That's
still
like
haven't
really
really heard him
stupid.
explicate much of that. He seems to have a grasp on his bread tube shit. And,
Yeah,
and
but
and I
it's already
wonder like
repetitive.
if he can grasp I don't know if he reads some Foucault, right, and has some takeaways from it. Like I don't know what the excuse for not being able to explicate like basic conservative positions is.
But like the thing is best about it, he basically like he always use argumentation from like authority.
I'm back, by the way.
Yeah, I was just
Hello.
checking, so I saw. Yeah, so actually, when you stepped away, I was just talking about that Parlor shooting. I guess Paulo said he hadn't heard of it, which surprised me. But I suppose it is still pretty current news. You guys heard about that one, right? Are you guys like just like waiting? Do I have to call names? Okay, Jay Willie, did you hear about it?
Hear about what?
Oh, the guy who he shot up Asian massage parlors. He killed 6 women and 2 other people. And now the media is trying to make it out like a white supremacist hate wave against Asians.
Yeah, but that's because people who believe the media are stupid enough to believe anything, so they can use whatever anecdotes to like make people believe in something.
Well,
Then people will
and
believe
that's
in it.
so true that before they had the anecdote, they were trying to push it just blindly. Like it was just bald face lying. Like you had a bunch of black perpetrators, right? And they're just like, let's just pretend they're white.
But like, here's actually something they would never bring up. And here's the reason why I know that most people are fucking idiots. Like, we know, statistically speaking, and I just need to define my term. When I say European in this context, I exclusively refer to race, not of like anything else. I only refer to race, right? Um, if people of European descent, regardless of where they live, are more likely to disproportionately be the victims of violent crimes by other races and are disproportionately less likely to inflict violence against other races, right? And that just means that on average, European race, regardless of where they are in the world, are on the negative end of getting more interracial crimes against them, right? And are less likely to commit interracial crimes against other people. But the media only report when people of European descent commit crimes against people of non-European descent. And people to have all the facts available at the fucking fingertips have no excuse for thinking that that is true because they have the facts next to it, but they don't read it. And therefore, I don't have no respect for them at all. Like that's the reason why democracy is like stupid idea. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree.
Awesome.
Derek, are you still alive?
Yeah, I was just taking some notes for timestamps, and I realized I've really muddied up the structure of the stream here because I had brought this up earlier.
But
Well, if you guys
I
had it,
was, I
so
was
that
like,
was one thing I brought up, and then also with the Sarah Everard vigil, because actually you're in the UK, so you probably heard more about all this crap. Sorry, all of these happenings.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I know the details of the case.
Yeah, well,
It's
I was
hard to
looking
know
at
what to say about it.
yeah, because I was looking at this article here, and it's funny just because it's describing the plague of the male violence of the police officers that broke up the vigil. And it's pretty funny how like the drama of this all goes down. So
but like all of this drama is like when I did Asian stuff, right? They basically have already prepared for the situation when it's going to come up because they really wanted this to happen, right? So therefore they can do what they want with their ideology because they're evil. Um, and that is the reason why they know exactly what's going to. They're like, oh my god, this is my best chance, and therefore uh, they have the script already, and then they said it, and then the people, the stupid sheep that they've herded, low IQ motherfuckers, all followed.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
I
guess
could
I
also
always wonder
just
though, what's the proportion of like top down versus bottom up with it, right? Because it seems like a lot of it is getting people to like genuinely construct insane gymnastics to justify these plans. And to me, a lot of it feels like these kind of grow organically here and there, and then maybe the people at the top get to kind of like pick like, yeah, we'll go with this one, and then like this whole anti-Asian angle. I feel like it's almost just like they're running out of steam and it's kind of all they've got.
But like, here's actually kind of funny, right? If you are like Asian, right, and you are in America and you're just applying for college, if you are considered to be white or Asian Pacific Islander, you are going to be discriminated against legally with your tax dollars. Your parents, if you're considered white or Asian Pacific Islander, are paying taxes that are being funded to universities that are discriminating against applicants who are registered as white or Pacific Islanders, right? Or Asian Pacific Islander, right? That means that those characters are already defined as an oppressed group in America today because of that, right? And so therefore, and if people want to talk about like, oh my God, they're racist towards Asians, and they don't talk about that, um, then then it's a failure. Then they don't actually care. They only care about it when European descendant people are doing it to people of Asian descent. They don't care about it when when the law. They don't care about They care about the legal violence, threats of like extortion on the violence. It's something they don't have an issue with. It's proportionately affecting certain races, right? And then discriminate against them, charging them for a service, and then not allowing them to take the service. But other people who are charged for it to a lesser extent have. And they think that they don't talk about that. But one person committing violence, that's somehow a problem, but the other things isn't. Like that doesn't make any that doesn't make any fucking sense unless you're a fucking communist. I think that because I committed race possibly in a way that that's a problem. You should do it my way, not their way. Even though it's not that much of a difference, to be honest. Besides that, now they're dead. And that's the only thing that makes it worse.
I
But if you
also
look at
go on.
and if you look at like how many people are affected, if you look at how many people that have been denied an education in America for their race, right? Whose parents have been paid into those educations, right? There are a lot of like how many victims are there of if you were to kind of talk about institutional racism, that's it. That is a lot of suffering. And people that and also like it's not just like what people are doing with the money, it's also that have like an effect on their emotional well-being. Like if you live in a country and work pay taxes for that country and then your kids get in second place because of their race, then that is like abuse, like literal emotional abuse of innocent people for like a generation and like millions of people. um and but these people that have ever killed one person, two, they're like, of course it's worse because they're killing, but like treating people like certain class citizens for a long time um, is also very bad. It's also violent.
I had a take on the Sarah Everard case, Derek, if you're interested.
Yeah, so I guess I mean because I think that pretty well wraps up the conversation on.
You've gone a little bit quiet, by the way.
No, yeah. Well, do you hear me now better?
You're still quiet, but I can hear you.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because I turned down my mic so that when it's louder on my ears, it won't echo as bad. So I might have really fucked up the audio now, but people said it was too quiet, so I tried something different. So I think I'm just gonna try to talk loud with my mic set lower. I think that's the best option. There's a delay on the stream, so it's gonna be a few minutes before I find out if this is good or if I've made it worse.
Okay. So should
But
I
yeah,
speak
so the
now?
Sarah
or-
Everard one, on the actual case or on this kerfuffle at the Vigil?
Just the overall morality of the response to it. So it's being blamed on male depravity, right? Collectively speaking. And I mean, I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't already know here, but so in this particular case, she was murdered, and I don't think it's a revelation to anybody that the probability of that happening to a woman, especially with these sorts of demographic characteristics in this particular circumstance, is somewhere close to the probability of being struck by lightning. Like, women aren't very often the victim of murders, frankly speaking. It's mostly men who are murder victims. And also, just what exactly is it that the women protesting are worried about? Um, Going out at night alone, in London, in this case. If it's rape, I mean, so we've just dismissed the murder example. With rape, that's not how most rapes happen. The overwhelming majority of rapes don't happen out in the open, yeah, either in night or during daylight, where there's a billion fucking DCT. That's obviously not typically how it happens. So it's not murder that they're complaining about. It's not rape per se, or maybe they would characterize it that way. But I'm just trying to figure out, to sort of get to bedrock reality in the situation. If they're just worried about something bad potentially happening to them, generically, I mean, who doesn't worry about something bad happening to them when they go out at night alone in a place like London? And moreover, we've been importing populations that are more susceptible to violent crime generally. And when these people go abroad, liberals, because that's sort of the general social milieu of London, to countries where they're more likely to get mugged, raped, whatever it might be, it's regrettable, obviously, but we see it as having gone to a dangerous environment. And you could also make the case just as equally that these people are responsible for importing a dangerous environment. And quite frankly, there are things that happen to individual men, right? There will be something that happens to one man tonight, probably in London, which will be worse, frankly speaking, than 1,000 women getting their asses groped or being subject to some other equivalently traumatic experience. I'm being sarcastic, of course. So you just need to, the general policy is to just ignore it. You should always ask yourself, would your ancestors, how would your ancestors look upon you giving much thought to the opinions of mobs of hysterical women, emotionally hysterical women? And if your ancestors are laughing at you for that, then it's probably the best solution is to just ignore it, avoid it. So that's why I haven't followed the story very closely.
Well, and you know what it reminds me
I do agree with
of?
what you want to say 100%. You're 100% correct.
Well, I just want to say, remember back when we did our exposing Korean feminism stream, right? Like, that was also a theme, anytime a Korean woman is murdered, right? All the women get together, have a big vigil for it, And of course, there's always this rhetoric about, this is all of us, right? It's whenever a woman is a victim, then all women are the victims of that crime, and whenever a man is a perpetrator, then all men are the perpetrators of that crime. It's
Can we do the same with race
how,
and religion? Can we do the same with race or religion, or wouldn't it be called like that? Not that
yeah,
I'm
right.
saying this.
Well, I mean, and it's frankly, it's a sexual tribalism, but it's like a one-way thing. Typically, with a tribe, they kind of have a similar structure. This is like competing tribes where like one of them is oriented to just completely get dominated by the other in a social sense, apparently. Which I guess is a much more charitable way of putting, us just taking our moral cues from hysterical females, though it may be charitable to a fault.
I would actually say something interesting.
Oh, but yeah, sorry, I was on a little bit tangent. All I wanted to say was it just reminds me of the Korean woman doing the thing. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Jay Willie.
Yeah, I would like to say that, like, I think the reason why many cultures are being persecuted gay males, right, it's because of the lack of a worship of the vagina, if that makes sense.
Wait, I'm sorry. There's a lack of. Oh, so even among gay men, there's a lack of vaginal worship.
Yes.
And wait, and then what is?
And that means that we don't take, oh my God, it's poor women. Oh my God, it's poor women. Oh my God, I'm so good. Like me. I know.
Yeah, but I don't think
Um,
that's true in practice. It seems like gay men are just often more so, but like there doesn't seem to be gay men being inoculated to gynocentrism.
no, but
But
that's not
gay
my
men
point.
are they're spared a lot of the kind of things that would happen in a sexual or romantic relationship, right? Like you don't deal with any of that. But
But that, but
yeah.
my point was that people would think that because it logically follows that gay males would be less gynocentric, right? And because of that, people presume that we aren't, even though most kind of are, and therefore it leads to a distrust, if that makes sense.
Maybe. I wonder who really. I mean, that can't be a mainstream view. I don't think. Because
No,
I think
it
in
might be a
general,
subminimal.
like all gays are just considered cookie cutter liberals, which is a pretty generally safe stereotypical bet. Sad as it is.
But like, I would actually say that the reason why they just want people who are gay to be like in their place, right? If I, for example, if you are gay, say that, you know what, I'm going to marry a woman, marry someone of my own race exclusively, and then I'm going to raise my kids traditionally. I'm going to oppose the LGBT ideology and community. I'm not part of that. Um, and I want to make the economy. I want to remove government from the economy altogether, right? If you were to say that, like, which we say a lot of the time, actually, not all of us, but we might not say all of it, we say parts of it,
I
right?
say it every
Then
morning and
suddenly,
every night.
indeed. But like, whenever we basically say that, they basically say, and therefore you basically see how extremely homophobic they are, because they literally say that because you reject communism and degeneracy, then that means you're not really gay, because they think that being gay is like this bad thing that needs our help. So therefore, their virtue is actually just hatred in disguise. It's like belittlement. That's the reason. So and therefore, when you basically say what we believe, then and if you don't follow the script that they think we should follow, only because of sexuality, I might add, then we are just as bad as the rest. And therefore, they will say like, oh, but then you're not actually that thing, which is like, if something is homophobic, then that is like the best example of it.
Well, yeah, and
And that's what my
oh,
point.
you know what? Here, I'll find it. I actually haven't seen the video yet, but everybody's been it's been all the rage because YouTube promotes this on their platform, on their safe for work platform, right? Nothing, nothing bad or destructive or bad about this. One moment here. But yeah, here it is. Here is what liberals want for you to do as a gay man. This is the script. Let's see if I can just search for it and it shows. Here we go. Yep. Oh, wow, there's a lot of these. Who knew?
Be
Well,
right
in the
back.
meantime, I would just like in the
This,
meantime that
it's this. It's the
that
what's up
like
my butt challenge. This is what they want. You make your YouTube video like this, and this is the script. This is gay culture, and if you're not doing this, you're a Yahtzee, basically.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
No, you too. I can't hear you. Your voice is too quiet. The volume is too quiet.
Well, you could hear me before.
Yeah, I know, but it's been more quiet for some reason. I don't know why.
Are you listening to me through the stream? No, because you're in the Discord.
Yeah.
I don't know. Here, I'll change it again.
Oh, now I can hear you better again.
Odd.
I don't know why this was weird, but it happened. But now I can hear you, so you can keep the talk.
All right, well, I turned up my mic volume, but again, I'm just concerned that when you guys talk, it's gonna do this annoying tinny auto thing, which is probably what people think Ashley's voice sounds like if they only hear him through my streams. Just because of the shit audio issues I have all the time. I need to get more expensive gear, and then it'll just be better. But
Yeah,
anyway.
I don't mind the tinny sound myself, but
Mm.
yeah, maybe it's disconcerting to audience members. I don't know.
Neither do I. Like, I'm fine with sounding like a weirdo.
No, you guys gotta not
Robot.
have that attitude, cause I have been streaming it's been years now. I don't have excuses. I mean, I have excuses. That's the problem.
Okay, but shouldn't you were supposed to say something about the script?
Well, yeah, that video I had on screen, the "What's Up My Butt" challenge. That's the script.
Where is it? I can't see it.
Oh, sorry, I took it
What?
down. I didn't need that. Just playing. But it's literally they're sticking stuff up a guy's butt and he's guessing what it is.
Why would I
Wow.
want to do that? I want to be a parent someday. You cannot do that in line. If like, imagine if someone, I wouldn't do that, but like if I like typical speaking, if I would, right? Why would I want to embarrass my future children? Like, that's just a bad parent, and I want to be a good parent. Like, what the fuck? That just
It's
like, why
also one
wouldn't
of
I
those
do that?
things like it's the idea has more or about as much comedic value as actually doing it. Like
And even
this
though
is
I
something.
want to
This
do
is
that,
something.
who
For
the fuck
example, okay, if they made a new American Pie movie, right? They could put a gay character in it who does this on like their OnlyFans, right? And that would be like like a funny kind of ridiculous mocking of thing that's topical, right? That would be suitable to a new American Pie movie, which frankly I think we need. I think that'd be fine.
Yeah, I would say that having new movies might be a bad idea because of the climate.
Oh what? Oh
It's
my
like
God!
all-time
You
worst.
Hoppians in your control. My goodness.
I'm not Hopian. I'm a fusionist.
Oh, whatever.
Okay, that's true.
I
I want to get to the part of this article where this feminist is trying to repackage how everything goes down here. And there is some very delicious, probably fattening in fighting in here. So I think I'll try to just run through the rest of the article, then we'll see if we have any more thoughts on it. I have a couple of other
Yeah, I
small
just
topics
wanted
after
to
that,
say
but I think you had a
my
better thing.
down.
Sorry,
Yes.
what?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, I had my topics that I wanted to discuss, but it's okay.
Oh, right, yeah. No, I didn't forget, don't worry.
My
So,
internet download speed is currently 92 megabytes a second. Legend has it that it sometimes even goes over 100.
I mean,
You know?
that's okay, isn't it? That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I don't even know how to check it. I'm too lazy.
Just go to speedtest.net.
Oh. Wait, if I just do that right now, is that just going to tell me?
Yeah. And hit go when you get to the page. Speedtest.net.
Well, it's taking a long time to load, which is not an auspicious sign. I should check this thing more often, though. It might be good to know. Ooh, it's still trying to connect.
Maybe make a comment about the up the butt challenge.
Ooh, yeah, I'm at like 20. At 20 megabytes per second. Oh, man,
So is the rest
going up
of
to 30, 20 to 30, I guess.
Is that article that you're talking about the Sarah Everard case?
Yes.
Oh well, that should be interesting.
It's about
Did you have any
about the shit show that happened at the Vigil.
All right. Okay.
All right. So, the guy approached. So here's another thing too. So more shitty writing. This is a massive quote, and there's no person that we don't know. I don't know who said this, but anyway. The guy approached my boyfriend for a comment, and he didn't even realize I was there. I was sitting on a bench near the stand with my crutches, as I am disabled. I guess it's the disabled chick. I mean, I don't. That's all I know about her. I had to make my presence known. He asked why I was at the vigil, and I told him that I'm a survivor of domestic and sexual violence, that I have nieces that are harassed by adult men on the way to school, and that I'm fed up with male violence not being treated as the crisis it is. His response, he said, so now here's the thing, though. Now this is in quotes, right? So this is her quoting back to who it is, this anonymous one. But it pisses me off at this part where, like, the writer is inserting his response, like, in between this breakup of one person talking, when this is where you tell me who the fuck you're quoting. Even if they're anonymous, it's like, oh, a disabled woman that I met at the vigil had this to say, or whatever. But we don't know. She's like a disembodied fucking ghost woman. That's what she's got her crutches for, because their legs are literally apparitions. Anyway, so let's see what the fucking disabled ghost lady has to say.
But
he said, yeah, but it's not all men, is it? Men aren't the problem. It's state violence. Now, okay, this, like, these views, of course, you know, people have these views, right? But this doesn't come off verbatim to me. There had to have, you know, this is obviously paraphrased. Not much substance there. We don't know what he means. I told him that for me, all men are a potential risk to women until we know otherwise. He wouldn't accept my answer and kept asking over and over again, pushing closer and closer into me and reasserting his point. His mask was flapping away from his mouth, and he was so close to me, I had to shout at him to back off. So that's another nice little, you know, 2020/2021 touch. Is and his mask was flapping around. Yeah, no, you've been trying to get in, so did you have thoughts on it? It's just this whole thing here.
Okay, but something I basically think, if I were to say that because when I lived in South Africa, and I was to say that because of statistics and reality about crime stats, does that mean if I were to say that all people of color are potential risk to me unless they prove otherwise? Because, like, if I were to, I would have more grounds to say. I wouldn't want to say that, by the way, because that's not actually what I think, right? But I would actually have more grounds to say that than she would have. Do you think they would accept that statement? That's okay?
Yeah, and a lot of people make that comparison too, because it is a little bit of a tricky square to circle. I think it's fine.
It is actually
I think prejudice is fine, to be honest.
No, me too. But,
yeah.
But the point is that how can they say prejudice is bad and then use logic to justify prejudice, and then you say the same logic for the same prejudice in the exact same circumstance is somehow not okay when it was like, you know, like, how can you say A is okay and A is bad at the same time? It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, well, it's because they got the end they want, and then they're just arguing to get to the end result they want, right?
Yeah.
But how can they say? Oh, we need to have anti-discrimination laws on private business, and if they think this, it doesn't make any sense.
Because only a racist would even care about that kind of thing. Which is bullshit, because even if that were true, like, the racists are still right, and you still just, like, lost your moral high ground to a bunch of racists. So it's quite funny to me.
The whole claim that only racists do that is insane, because then they basically admitted that all affirmative action programs based on race are racist, which they are actually. But like, the problem is with that is statism, and if they think it's sexism is completely justified, right, when it comes to how you discriminate against people in your private in your life, right, that then why shouldn't racism be? That doesn't make any fucking sense.
I don't even mind the sentiment that men are more violent in general. It's like, so the way I would characterize it is that if I was out at night, you know, I would be more concerned for my safety around, or, you know, if I saw a man approaching as opposed to a woman approaching me, just because just because a man's more likely to do you serious damage if he has the will to, and also just because actually, as a man, you're more likely to be at the receiving end of male violence than women are, right? But that doesn't mean I would characterize it as male depravity being the problem. It's more just a subset of men, and it's a subset of men who, well, like I just said, are more likely to inflict their violence on men in almost all cases. But it's very difficult to explain this to women because of their superior emotional intelligence. Um, so yeah.
But but like women aren't superior at that. Well, technically speaking, women aren't really superior at anything.
I was being
Besides giving birth.
sarcastic.
Yeah, I know. But like, I can't. I never know when people are being sarcastic.
That's how the
no,
train
you're
goes. That's how the
right.
choo-choo goes. Sometimes we gotta just stop and remind each other, and that's okay.
Yeah, Derek, did you have a take on that?
Well, I just need to go say I
think
need to go
I
eat.
just think
I'll
it
be
makes
right back.
yeah. It's the kind of thing that you know, libertarians always complain about collectivism, right? And this was something, you know, Ron Paul had always pointed out. He's like, well, racism is a form of collectivism, you know? And like, there's always this thing where then what libertarians often do is they say, well, I'm against these collective judgments, you know? And then like the process of coming back and relearning, like, you know, it actually is okay to have propositions in your head that are general. Right? Because of course you do, right? So it's like this like,
Well-
but like libertarians have to like they accidentally unlearn that and then have to relearn it. And I think not all of them have, which is I'm probably still too quiet. I'm gonna try to bump it up a little more. But no, okay, we're not even at the best part of this article though, because what really gets fun is the lengths that this writer goes through to repackage everything into her narrative. So so she describes that little back and forth, right? You have people who are there because they're protesting police violence, and then you have the feminists there who want to make it a big male issue. And from her perspective, obviously, this is a male issue. And how dare these people try to hijack the issue for their cause that I was trying to hijack for my cause, right? But you're still here, right? It's so quiet.
Derek?
Okay, yeah. Have you been talking? Oh, I'm roboting really badly. Yeah, this is just my internet sucks today. I don't know what the deal is.
Okay, I can hear you again now.
Jeez, I think it is just my internet here is just not good today.
That's okay.
I don't know why it would matter today though. Maybe the season's changing. Something with wiring got fucked up. I don't know.
But I was just gonna sort of add like an example to sort of concretize what you were saying, which is that you can acknowledge or you can be sort of okay with the idea that men are more violent in general, right? Just generically speaking. That doesn't mean that it's male nature, generically speaking, that's at fault. And it also doesn't mean that women are most affected by it. But it's difficult to explain this for reasons of emotional intelligence.
No, yeah, I mean, that's pretty funny actually.
Yeah.
It's funny because everyone would agree. We'd say, okay, so obviously this difference in the response from women versus men. Clearly, the difference is the emotional intelligence. Women just have much more emotional intelligence, and if men are going to learn to be emotionally intelligent like women, then we need yeah, we need men to, you know, like freak out when they see other men on the street, right? Because of how likely they are. They just men are just trying to walk home at night and be safe, okay? And if you're another man and you see a man coming near you, like one of you just needs to cross the street just to be safe, right?
Yep.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it turns out I'm so stupid. When you have an Ethernet cable plugged in, like it's faster if you hook up your Wi-Fi and your Ethernet, right? And I guess mine was set to not automatically reconnect the wireless. So yeah, my internet speed is like doubled now, just this moment.
Oh, nice. That's good.
Yeah, it still kind of fucking sucks because it's so preventable, but I got pretty good at double checking the drop down menus for all the audio settings and confirming the click for each thing. And I guess I got to do that for the internet now too. I have the hardest life.
Yeah. But I was just gonna say it's like it's in this case, it was a murder that they're getting into all this furore about, but it's not clear, like, what exactly is it that they're worried about? Because, like, I went all through all this before. I don't know if you had something else to say about it. It's like
Oh yeah.
it doesn't appear to be. I mean, it can't be murder that they're concerned with, because female murder victims are about as common as lightning strike victims. Like, it really just isn't something that happens very often. And especially the circumstances of this case, like, things like that are really rare, really rare. And even if it's rape, most rapes, the overwhelming majority of them, don't happen in public, especially not in a place like London, which is renowned for having like 70,000 security cameras, CCTV cameras per square meter or some shit. So it's just retarded.
Well, I mean, here actually, this is gonna be fun. We'll do. I have an excuse to pull up Paint, right? I'm gonna make this up as I go along. Hopefully, it'll make sense by the time I get to the end. But I think I know how to visually um, um, show this. Oh my god, Paint is so slow. How do I just gotta see if the window capture works for it. But basically, right, you have this anecdote, this thing that happens, and they need to make it, I guess, isomorphic to something that they could conceivably experience.
It's a good word, isn't it?
It's a really useful word, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So since they need that, no, I can't. I'm not gonna get a window capture going. Everything is just so slow. Ever since I started my new job, they like made me install crap on my computer, and I swear to God, it made Windows updates happen more often, and like I hate it. Anyway, but no. So if it's about a man did a bad thing to a woman, right? That gets to encompass like the entire landscape of these like this feminist fear mongering. If then someone says, no, it's about men who are part of the government who do this to women. Now it's a circle, and that excludes some women, right? So you want the biggest circle ever, because the end goal of it is to give as many women as possible, like essentially 100% of women, basically a high ground to kind of like have this cathartic emotional thing about the victim they have. This female thing about needing to have a problem and be victimized and wanting to complain, right? So it's catering to that, and it's a cynical move to just get more attention and resources kind of thrown on them. It's something to just kind of habitually do, because you know that the more often you do it, the more shit you get, right? So that's just why it's naturally structured in this way, that it's going to be a lowest common denominator basic bitch narrative that it just gets reduced to. And then anybody who's coming in there to make it about the specifics of the case, they're invalidating the victimhood of all of these, frankly, vultures, just emotional vultures. And like literal vultures, we do have a body. So that's kind of how I feel about it. But yeah, it's a simple way to just keep a big tent for the people who get to claim victim status. I guess that's the one. I could have said that one sentence. That probably would have been the entire last 2 minutes of my ramble there.
Yeah. And I guess
you're not supposed to agree with that.
To continue the analogy, I didn't really hear what you said. But to continue the analogy, you could say that men are the people who are feeding the vultures in this scenario, because like they just enable this hysteria and are just like filled with overwhelming primal urges, similar to the sexual urge insofar as they're deep and primal, to protect women. So yeah, we get these sorts of social outcomes, and men don't protest against it unless they're very neuroatypical.
Right. Okay, I want to get to the next part of the story, because the developments are pretty interesting in this one. So a short while later, another man decided to place himself front and center of the slowly increasing masses, shouting and generally proving our points. Piers Corbyn, the brother of Jeremy and now famous anti-vaxxer theorist, was seen slinking around, leading to rumors that the as yet unidentified mansplainer was from the same movement. As the sun began to sink, the air shifted, and what had started out as a peaceful affair turned to one of tangible protest. He started shouting from the bandstand about state-sponsored violence and police brutality. I didn't come here to hear you speak, I shouted back. We came to hear women speak about women. At which point, another member of the crowd shouted at me, telling me my brand of feminism was the problem, and that men are allowed to speak. Around that point, the crowd started chanting, "Not your place," and the mood really changed. I began to feel uncomfortable, and it felt dangerous. It was so dangerous. He was taking up a space that he did not deserve to take up. And it's always this too, taking up space, right? It's it's the most like bare bones fundamental kind of an accusation, right? Because you're always taking space, like literally, right? Taking up space.
Do you remember?
And so
remember
I just want to finish this thought, right? So male perpetration reduces down to he was taking up space, and the female victimhood reduces down to like I feel uncomfortable, right?
Yeah. Well, do you
Shit,
remember what
I just
Prince of,
found valence. That's valence. This is the standard. This is
Yeah.
Valencium.
Or we can get on to that later. Prince of Queens had a take on that. He said that when they use this phrase "taking up space," that just means existing.
It means
Right, that's
existing.
what it means.
It's literally what it means. Well, let's restate this one. He was existing in a space that he did not deserve to exist in, I guess. We had the minute's silence. Then everyone clapped. All I wanted to do was scream, and then more men turned and started shouting about police violence. Not wanting to disappoint. Here's the thing. It's not even like she was saying, "Oh, we wanted to keep this respectful and apolitical because I don't know, it's a fucking vigil for a dead person, right?" Instead, it's like, no, I wanted my political narrative there, and somebody else put their political narrative there, and it's their fault that everything got heated, right?
Wouldn't
I just love the child. I would love it if there was another article which is from the perspective of like one of these people following what's his name? Corbyn. I never heard of Jeremy. Not the other Corbyn. This one is Piers Corbyn. It'd be fun to hear like a Piers Corbynite take on it, which is like the exact same thing about how they just went to talk about how police violence is such a sore genre, and then all these goddamn feminists showed up to make it all about vagina.
Well, yeah. And I was just gonna say, like, even if you were in a situation of like tremendous pain or fear, like with actual good reasons to be in those states, like, wouldn't you have some sense of like pride or, you know, anything that would keep you from writing a sentence like, "All I want to do is scream," and then like broadcasting that to the entire world? It's just like, I mean, you said childlike before, but it really is. It's like, we really do need to look at these people like they're children and start treating them like that.
It's generally true whenever anything like emotional, loud, like, all caps, lots of curse words and profanity, right? Which I write this way online because for me it's just like kind of a vulgar baseline standard, right? But in general, it's indicative of like a really profound lack of self-control because it's written, right? Which means that like you could write it out, look at it, say it out loud, right? Whatever, and then just delete it just as easily as finding it, you know?
Yeah.
So this is a general principle, and at times I try to remind myself of that. But so I can kind of relate. I think everybody gets a little guilty of it, but I don't mean like I just wanted to scream or whatever. It is worth noting though that you don't see something as pathetic as like I was so angry that I like urinated and shat my pants literally, and you know like and now every time I look at that underwear, I cleaned it so well, and there's the skid mark on it. It terrifies me. Right? Like, there's so many more like just like vulgar and horrific, like pathetic things that you could be describing. Besides, maybe part of it is that when it seems like it's related to mental anguish, there's something kind of like I don't know, like clean about it. Like it doesn't have a, I don't know. I was kind of in a ramble, but to me, I thought like there's a reason that you hear one but not the other.
Less visceral, I think, is what you were getting at.
Yeah, like, that's a better way of putting it. Also, non-verifiable, right? Like you're gonna come back and have all this great physical evidence of your mental anguish later, and people wouldn't. It'd plausible deniability for not having it, which is the most important part. But
yeah. Oh well.
Let me see here. Yeah, I began to feel uncomfortable. And it did feel dangerous. Taking no space. So then, violence. Not my disappoint. The police waited until dark before they took their moment to strike. So that sentence there, yeah, like the idea, right, is that after dark things tend to get a little bit crazier and more violent. Typically, people who are organizing for some kind of planned event, which apparently this one was held like without a permit, like they were negotiating terms that everyone just did anyway, is my understanding, right? But the police didn't care; they just like let them do it anyway, you know. And I guess they'd been watching, they were waiting for a moment, but in her judgment, they waited until dark to strike because they wanted police to avoid accountability, I guess, rather than that just being a general principle, like if it's not winding down after dark. Right, then maybe that's what you know what I mean? It's ridiculous that implying everything. But my footage of officers arresting justice, seeing through the crowd, circulated on social media, even watching from a virtual distance, there was a howl to an apprehension, sounds of worried cries and boos, yanking hairs hair off the back of the sounds of worried cries and boos yanking hair off the what is that? The sound of worried cries and boos and yanking hair off the back of necks. That's not that's not a sound.
It's really inept writing.
You know what? No. So this part is supposed to be part of a list. It's supposed to be footage off of fluorescent jackets, looking for the crowd, yanking hair off the backs of necks, circulated on social media. You can figure out how to make that a list. I don't know. Anyway.
Earlier, it was also like earlier she said the sun sank. Right? I'm remembering that correctly.
Yes, the sun sank. Not
I don't
set.
want to make too much of this or be nitpicky, but I think it's really good as a visual metaphor because like it works in some circumstances. Because when you think of sinking, you imagine a ship crashing into an iceberg and it's going along its merry way, along a straight path until it had this encounter and it sank relatively quickly.
As the sun began to sink.
Or when someone says, "My heart sank," right, in response to some sort of emotional trauma, that makes sense because what they're saying is, right, I was fine, I was just going about my day, and then suddenly something horrible happened, and then it took the wind out of my sails and my heart sank. To sort of sandwich two metaphors together there, but it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to apply to the sun because the sun's always just kind of like gradually arcing across the sky.
Yeah, it's like sinking implies that you're going into something and enveloped by the thing you're going into. Yeah. Downward, and the sun is like as non-enveloped a thing as you can find. Literally, it's enveloped by space. The non-envelopment. But I think what she was going for is that if she said as the sun begins to set, like then you think of a sunset and it sounds kind of nice and it's peaceful. And she was going for like a sinking heart. She wanted it to sound a little bit more sinister and maybe a little bit offish. Wait a minute, sunset, she said sink. Like it seems to be like on the surface everything would be normal, but there's something beneath it. Yeah, that's me trying to repair something. Maybe
if you wanted to go like full hysterically to coin a phrase, like you could use weird phrases like the sun.
I think hysterish sounds better.
Yeah.
Hysterish. Yeah.
Yeah. The sun began to crash.
The sun crashed.
Yeah.
The sun just imploded. The sun.
Or plummeted, something like that.
The horizon kidnapped, raped, and murdered the sun. That's peak feminist literature. God, I just want to like develop an alternate personality where I just write as Starhawk or write as Andrew Dworkin, just to get just to really shake all the demons, and then I want to like publish it. Like to Tanya Grath style, like I want people to believe it.
Yeah, I've considered doing things like that under a pen name just because I know that women love to tell stories about how victimized they are, and it's like a really good way to rake in the dough. So I wouldn't have any sort of moral qualms about doing that if I had a pen name, and if I could be relatively assured I would make a bit of money from it. I've also considered doing other things, like so there are these weird websites that people can buy objects to satisfy sexual perverts. Like, there's a really effective and efficient way that you could like scam people, because like you could say that you were selling used underwear or something, right? And then like they send you their money, right? But then you never send them anything. Like they don't receive their desired items, right? And it's like it's pretty foolproof if you look at it this way, because I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to call the police and say, "I asked this guy on the internet for used panties and he never sent them to me"?
Right. Yeah, same thing with
I know
any black market thing, has that problem.
I know that seems like deeply evil, but not gonna lie, I have thought about it.
My whole thing about selling panties is I just like if someone's willing to pay money, assuming it's your panties, right? I mean, I guess if you're selling other people's panties.
Derek, no, Derek. What I meant was not actually doing it. Like I could just display
No.
things.
I'm saying that, but like, what I'm getting at is that like to just send someone the panties they pay for, that's like nothing. I don't know. Like underwear's not that expensive.
Yeah.
I just feel like from just a basic ethical standpoint, like, anytime you wore the panties again later, or if you ever washed them, you'd know. You'd know that you wronged someone.
I'm gonna be honest. Maybe I have like borderline psychopathy or something, but I very rarely experience guilt. To be honest, it's like pretty foreign to me.
Maybe you just don't bad things very often.
Well, yeah,
it's probably mostly neutral things, which I think most people are kind of in that camp. You do at least 90% of whatever we do in a given day is probably neutral. 10% matters quite a lot, right? But doing like 98% neutral stuff a day, I can't imagine you'd feel that guilty.
And there's been some furore in Britain recently. Actually, it's another news story about people trying to buy puppies over the internet. Like the seller, quote unquote, or the scammer, in actual fact, would send them videos, images of these puppies, and then the people, the buyer would just send the money, and then the party wouldn't come. It just seems to be manifestly a really idiotic thing to do, to try to buy an animal over the internet. You want to go to see it for yourself, let the animal, make sure it's healthy, etc. You'd probably want to pay for it in cash as well, I'd imagine, just to be on the safe side. Just doing it all digitally, it just seems like a recipe for getting scammed, and it's difficult for me to sympathize with them, to be honest, because it's just so transparently idiotic.
I don't know, because I think it depends, because there's obviously like online services that are reputable and like, work, right? Because like usually anybody looking for a pet, like almost always look online first, right? And obviously scammers, there are some telltale signs. There've got to be, but I mean, I can totally imagine.
Okay, so that's another thing. Like, you'd think they would have at least checked the user reviews, right? Who would have reported them for being scam artists, well, unless like it was just some person who's, I don't know, really obscure. In which case, like, you should probably stay away from them anyway. Just go to the more popular sellers who have like good reputations, and have all the 5-star reviews and so on. Seems like that would be a sensible thing to do, but apparently not so obvious to some people.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I might be uncharitable.
Well, part of it too is like there's another counterintuitive thing in pets, which is like if you get one from a pet shop, there's like a pretty there's a not insignificant chance that came from a puppy or something, right? And that there's ethical concerns there. But you'd think like conventionally in most other contexts, the thing that you buy from like a storefront, like generally that's kind of like your safest bet. I suppose in that situation, it's not so much you're getting scammed as I suppose it's a different kind of scenario, but it's reminded me of that little oddity, right? That the white market solutions are actually I don't know, if you're buying pet, it's very particular. Like, there's so many pet forums and stuff, right? Like, anybody with a pet or it's not, just, like, constantly like, reading through stuff like that. Like, every stage of the process is probably not the good for parent, as they call them.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to read the rest of this. Like, but there was a part near the end of this where she just freaks out and it's like, so what described is that first the cops do is they take away men. They start arresting, I can find... Like, I don't want the exact sentence because it was juxtaposed is really unintentional. Yeah, we go. This is the police intervene. Their first act was a welcome one, taking away man on the bench to cheer and applause. So the first act, right, there's them physically moving aside the mic, right? Then the VOD started. Who just appreciate, the police, not for violence, right? They are using violence here, taking men away. This happens after that. That's violence. Like zero awareness at all, right? Like so when people like me say stuff like, "Oh, don't see no victimhood, bouncing on just a visible them," and they say, "Well, that's ridiculous and black and white thing to say, and it's obviously not fair, and you're being reductionist, blah blah blah." Bam, right here. Here's the truth. It came right after this highly stylized, very intentionally written piece of garbage.
Yeah.
One by one, they grabbed women standing at the edge of the bandstand and dragging them backwards away from witnessing eyes disappearing into the center. One video, a girl desperately trying to hold on to a woman who appeared to be her friend, panting as she watched her being manhandled by men twice her size. Another officer appeared to her left, hunting down to warn her off. Live streams show policemen with their hands on their baton, running after groups of women who flooded tears. So dramatic, right?
Yeah, you'd think they would describe like a firefight in the Bosnian War or something, or Afghanistan.
It's fucking crystal knocked is what it is. Like shit.
Yeah, crystal knocked.
And I think this is where the suspicious photos that seem conspiratorial, the tinfoil hat photos were taken of the redheaded woman. You've seen those photos, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the first part of the story I heard. So then when I was trying to figure out the story, at first I thought she was the one who was there, Everard, who died. And then when I was reading about this, I was like, wait, did it all happen twice? So I had to learn the story like movie Memento. I had to go back until I got to the ending again.
Oh, a couple of minutes ago, Aesthetics said YouTube is buffering super badly on looping audio.
Really? Yeah, I think it's the way my internet was up on the delay.
I think it'll be alright with like uploads.
Oh, he said that just 5 minutes ago. So that was after I made the fixes. So I don't know. Yeah, this will probably be one that just isn't very listenable, unfortunately.
Yeah, because once it's uploaded, you can play it on 2 times speed or whatever. So
I don't even know if that's necessarily the problem. Obviously, I think that's preferable just in general. We probably talk slightly too fast. Like we're probably 1.5 times.
Really? I always thought I'd have droning slow voice.
Maybe I don't. No, I always get told that I talk way too fast.
Oh.
Let me see. Yeah, the police statement was very milquetoast that they didn't want to enforcement action was necessary, but they were placed in this position because of the overriding need to protect people's safety.
The police force is headed by this woman called Cressida Dick, who is a lesbian feminist. And when I say lesbian feminist, I don't mean that in like biological sense, like she's like an Andrea Walken or something like that. Not like that. I just mean she's a feminist and she's also a lesbian.
But, oh yeah, so not like a lesbian separatist or whatever.
No.
But her name sounds like a punchline, right? It sounds like hey, is there a Miss Dick in here? Is there a what's her first? Press a Dick in here? It just sounds like.
Can I send you a Wikipedia page? I'll just post it in main.
Yeah, I'll just post it. Oh, Cressida Dick. It just sounds Cressida Dick. More from the Dick. There gotta be it.
Yeah, her.
Just had jokes. It's like a Cumberbatch name. I mean, fuck. Cressida Dick.
And the middle name.
Nice. Cressida Rose Dick. She's a dame. That's perfect. Dame Cressida Rose Dick.
Yeah. Yeah, so she was given a knighthood. It's like, I don't know, I haven't looked into what she was knighted for, but I imagine it's pretty dodgy. Like a lot of these people.
Oh, so she came out as gay in April 2017, and at that point she could be the highest ranked gay officer in British history. I wonder how many on the super high ranking and influential gays are just like sleeper agents. There's got to be a funny name for a gay sleeper agent. Oh, sleeper gay agent. 2
She's 2 years older than my mother, but my mother doesn't have gray hair like that because she dyes it all the time.
Yeah,
Just ejaculated.
yeah, I was just thinking about her. The silver cougar lady. What do you call a cougar? You call her a cougar, not silver fox. Is silver fox only men?
Yeah.
Which is funny because foxy is supposed to be like, that's more of a feminine compliment.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was I think that was about, oh yeah, the last article I wanted to make fun of is the way she paraphrases or interprets the holy statement is, look at me. And I just have to think about this for a second. Like, if you give a reason for doing a thing, you're saying, like this is why I did the thing, right? And if the reason involves the person being responsible for it, look at me do literally, like, actually a reasonably justified thing to say, right? Like, particularly for people who are defending themselves against aggressors. And I wonder if the dumbest hope of, abusive men always say, look what you made me do, and this is victim blaming, it's psychological, and that's what causes all this blah, 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 blah. I wonder if very, very often you have women who are aggressive, who are abusive, and then when the men they abuse defend themselves, right? And the explanation is, you were attacking me, you were creating an unsafe environment, you needed to be stopped, I had to do what I had to do. Oh, he's saying, look what you made me do, so he's the abuser, right? Like, if you can really internalize this as like an adage, it is literally just a recipe for you can be an absolute douche to anyone on the planet, and if they ever resist you, they're the abuser. Because it's absolute, you know? Yeah, it's... I mean, obviously the situation's right where, it's not justified, right? The person was not causative toward no reasons, then,
yeah.
Then it would be...
That's a good word as well.
It is. Yeah, the rest of this is boring. Oh, anyways, I did not last for a group of 22 men were secretly allowed to play an illegal game of football. Oh, so it shows us what about them, where, there was a group of people playing football nearby, and, that, they played football, it was over, right? No stakes or anything. Clearly, the event that she was at, which she described as becoming uncomfortable and getting heated, right? That which preceded the cops involvement wouldn't happen had the cops been involved later, which makes no fucking sense. She's just pissed off because it's a game of football. It's a very male game, so she's tying those up. She's just connecting the dots there. Anyway, that was I guess that was kind of the last story I had. There was one other little tweet I wanted to make fun of, but we can save that for later or whatever. See if it's relevant.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go into the other topic that you want to discuss. I'm assuming this is more. Is this, are we going to eternalism, or are we already beyond that?
That might come up, but it's more about the moral realism versus anti-realism debate, which is more colloquially called like objective versus subjective morality. Although I'm going to try to sort of like clear up what I see as like some of the confusion around this topic, and I'm going to specifically avoid using the subject for as long as I can because I think that actually confuses things. So,
hey, I tend to agree. So that's a good start.
Yeah. Moral realism.
The other quick thing is I'm going to mute myself for probably about 3 minutes, just because I prepared some food and it wasn't quite full, or I was full, and I'm going to finish it because it's been a couple of hours and it's going to get bad. Anyway.
Okay. But you're still listening, or?
Yes.
Okay. So moral realists are people who think that moral sentences are true fact, which is to say they express proposition. So when someone says that murder is wrong, they're not just saying who to murder or I did murder or something like that. They're saying there's some sort of there's actually a property there called wrongness, right? And they think that moral truth can be discovered analogous to the way that mathematical truth can be discovered, as opposed to being invented or